All right. So we are back on overtime. We're not even going to stop. We'll dice that up. We'll, it's like, Jay, you know what we're going to say. We'll take care of that in post.
We'll get that.
How often is that said?
So I have a question. So here's my premise. If you can say no, because we can edit that out. No, that's stupid. So I would like for you to give me a concern or an issue that you have in your part of the industry, and then a solution. Be like, you know what, here's one thing that frustrates me about what homeowners are doing or what we're doing. And here's what I think we should do is my premise as part of our overtime. You each get your little tiny soapbox with it. Actually, here's what the answer to that. So anybody dying to tell us what's really, we don't think is going well in our industry and how we should fix it. And
I like you adding the solution part, because then it's not just whining. I tend to just whine. I don't really offer solutions.
Come to us with a solution. So
I whine, then dine.
Okay. Thanks for speaking up first, Jay. You are it. What do you got?
The question was what's my big issue and how would I fix it?
Yeah.
In the industry. I would say that the value to be able to monetize health issues really is the thing. And I think that right now, many people are being motivated by fear, by emotion, and generally people are. But once that wears off, where are we at? I think if we want to see change in the industry, we need to have people need to be able to say, that this is going to save me this amount of money, especially when we're talking about resiliency of every economic resiliency of entire cities, communities, things like that. When we start talking about how that really affects, if the rich people could figure out how much less taxes they would have to pay if poor people didn't get sick all the time from their homes, I think that would make a big difference.
Okay, so let's follow up. So that's a half solution. So what is something that you think that CEDA or Illinois could do to be like, you know what, here's what we need to do to figure out what that data is, or what kind of solutions those actually intake? How is it that we convince health people that this actually is something? Did you have a couple, like two things, be like, well, if we did this and this, well, we would get somewhere?
I think, I don't know. It's a good question. I think sometimes, what we've talked about in the free market, or in the private sector, in the public sector, sometimes it's about convincing politicians that it can be good for them, and then oftentimes they're going to spread the message. Sometimes the tail does wag the dog in our sense, similar to what I think Doug had mentioned earlier about his market being driven. I'm sorry, John mentioned earlier about contractors coming to class. Well, I wonder sometimes, are those contractors just guessing that that's going to make them money, or is it that they already are making money? Is it the market, or is it the consumer that's driving those contractors to go, or are the contractors driving it? And if but does it matter? Will the contractors take those classes and then go back out to market and start selling it and start proselytizing? So in our section, the analogy is, for me, is if we can get politicians to understand it and get bought into it, then will they proselytize it and advertise on it for re-election and spread that word to the people? I think so.
Great, thanks, Jay. Bill, how about you?
I'm going to have to do two. And so the first one is what I see a lot of, especially on the internet right now, is there are a lot of, and no names mentioned, new build stuff putting in, and I'm going to use the example of the Nano Wall, those nice glass doors and things. That's what's getting all the hits on the internet. And yet there's a whole bunch of people out there that can't afford a Nano Wall, a nice fancy glass folding door. And I'd like to see more emphasis put on it as us as information providers, to be able to say, you don't have to have a Nano Wall to be able to make your house more comfortable, durable, efficient, healthy, and good occupant health. And so to do a better job of getting that information out there. I think we need to do that in new construction and in regular construction. And then the other thing I think, and so the solution there is just to do a better job of training, and we've got a perfect opportunity with whether it's be Zoom or YouTube or whatever to get that information out there and spread it out to say it's okay. The other thing is I think that I run into a lot of contractors who are resistant, and I'm working on projects right now that they're saying, well, we don't need to do that. Or the best example is that's not the way we've always done it. And somehow, not somehow, to find a way to show them, and it's by a hands-on example. I saw a session earlier on today about using a particular product and the contractor didn't want to use it. Somebody provided it to them and they used it. So I think that the solution there is to just do a better job of showing contractors that the way they used to always do it is not the way we should keep doing it.
On that side note, you could look up Bill Robinson and find amazing training on how to install a variety of stuff. Bill's been very involved in JLC, not actually John Mitchell's company, but and a variety of other stuff. So Bill does step up to say, I'm going to commit my time to making sure that others know how to do it right. So well done, Bill. I appreciate all that you've done for our industry. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Kelly, what do you got for us?
So I was having a hard time coming up with something, but something Bill said reminded me. Before we started, I think, or you started us off by saying the thing about windows, and like everybody knows they need new windows. Even my aunt and uncle who live in a 100-year-old farmhouse with zero insulation in the attic know they need new windows. So I think what we could do for our industry is some kind of like national public service announcement or educational campaign to get regular homeowners, people who live in their homes to understand that it's not just about the things you can see on your house, but there are these other we need to make the invisible visible to them somehow. Because I think until just the regular public starts to value this, then they aren't going to, they aren't going to invest in it, and our industry will never have the reach that we need to have to fix all the existing buildings that are already there, not even talking about new construction. I think somebody had a really cool idea, I want to say like 15 years ago, about having a similar to the Victory Gardens approach of like, be a patriot, get your home weatherized, and then have like some yard sign of I've done my thing. But that's one thing I think would be good.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. John, do you have something that's not educational or training? And if so, if you do, that's okay.
No. I mean, you can skip me if you want, because it's pretty much a tie of what Bill and Kelly were both saying about getting these customers out there, getting everybody, incentivized for this. The only other thing I was going to offer for the education part, because that's the way I think, is the level of our education we have for our people who are working in the industry. I see a lot of people who go through one set of training, they pass it without a problem. They go to the next set of training and they expect to pass it, but they fail miserably because they're not paying attention to the small details of the first training they did. They forget about it. They become contaminated with the industry they're working in rather than on the science. So my biggest thing is educating in greater depth, like moving someone into healthy homes. It's a different mindset and a totally different training skill than it is to get someone into just building science. Getting them the different level of knowledge is critical. The same with the homeowners. If they're educated on what's going to be happening to their home, it's going to be a better project. So mine's all about the education. Sorry about that, Joe.
That's okay. But no, it's a fundamental challenge that we all have in all industries, no matter what it is. It could be plumbing, HVAC. The challenge is not just to educate that installer, but how can that installer or that person who's at the house communicate that to the client effectively to say, you know what, here's why we think you should be installing this. It isn't because it costs $70 more or $700 more. It's because we think it's a value for your family. When they can communicate that, now they have an emotional connection, and now they're able to relate why this is a benefit. So I do agree that it isn't just technical training. It's actually how to give across an emotional relationship to your clients.
Yeah. I think there should be a class on to show technicians how to talk to people and about the appropriate way of introducing something for their home.
Yeah, so Jay West and I have done a lot of training, and the one thing we always realize is that we never have enough time to do that part of the training. We're always there to teach people how to do a blower door test, but we don't teach them how to communicate what that blower door test is doing for the house. So Jay has been an advocate as to how do you communicate the skill behind communicating what the thing is doing. So.
And by the way, you did a beautiful job with the healthy home thing, with the open question, closed question, commonalities. That's probably one of the most interesting parts of that training. The guys love that because they're like, oh, okay, so I shouldn't call this guy stupid. No, he's a really nice guy.
It doesn't really get you very far with people. When you start out by telling them they're stupid, they usually tend to be a little closed-minded on anything else you have to say.
So it's okay to say that sometimes I come across as stupid. That now you've actually established that this person must be smarter than me. So
it was 6 words, right? I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say we're stupid.
Yeah. Jay, what do you got for us?
I don't know. I think you said it well.
No. So what's the one thing that you would hope that CEDA would be like, you know what, I've been harping at CEDA to do this, you know what, and I'm really hoping that maybe if they see this recording.
You're trying to put his career on the line here. Wait a second. Maybe you should phrase that a little different.
What do you think weatherization in Illinois should do? How about that? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's still a little heavy. Why don't you just say, what would you do in a perfect world?
Again, I would say that, that we need to have a little bit, I think specifically, we're getting more into healthy home evaluator certifications. I think that we need to know a little bit more about that. I think that, and I think that we need to test, we need to expand, we need to know facts where, what we do in weatherization is not just, is ideally based on facts, not opinions. And until, if we can't figure out how to get some diagnostics in here, especially when it comes to healthy homes, and then also have a process for healthy home evaluation, then we're never gonna, that's our first step.
Okay, so Doug and his cat are going to give us
my coworker.
Yeah, your coworker. Right.
Doug and his chroma keyed cat. No?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
I can't add much to this. I mean, I think most of us are working in the field of education, and we can all see the need for it. Every time I go out to a horribly broken house, I just think, wow, if only these people knew a little better, they probably could have done this without all these problems. And I think, I mean, this is beyond pie in the sky, but there are a lot of externalities in the way our economy is run, so that healthcare impacts of bad housing are not paid for by the people who don't go to fix the houses. And if we could sort that out, it would work a lot better. Same thing with pollution. Pollution is free, and then the rest of us deal with the implications of that. If we could put a better price on pollution, that would go a long way in solving it. But like I said, pie in the sky. Don't expect that'll happen. I'm just going to keep training carpenters. Thank you.
Well, hey, that is great stuff. So it all changes slowly. So yeah, Bob, you had something?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and I'm going to pick up on two things. Kelly earlier in the main section, talked about it'd be really helpful for the program providers to have those parameters, right, clearly defined for indoor air quality. And since the show is based on moisture and mold, moisture, I think we know what levels of moisture in building materials tend to make it more prone to having microbial growth. That's pretty much a known quantity. As far as getting, defining what's going to be acceptable levels of mold in the indoor environment, good luck with that. That's never going to happen because there's just too many different constituents, too many different ways. The whole medical relations to, like what bothers me may not bother Kelly, what may not, what may make Jay deathly sick. Mold is weird that way, and it's just, I don't see us ever having what passes and fails. It's very dynamic and it's very individually, your reactions, both from an IG response and or, just an annoyance response, right, it varies greatly. So that's a parameter we're not going to ever have. We're at least not in our foreseeable future, which makes it very problematic to regulate and have uniform quality control. You're dealing with mold issues in buildings. Is what's good, what's bad, what do we shoot for? Every time we as consultants, we reinvent the wheel for every project. We come up with the parameters that pass or fail. And I've done that so many thousand times in these last 30 some years. And I may be right, I may be wrong, but, and then there's this whole thing, so that's a tough one. Jay and John both hit on, like the education. And I think that's very true. But is the tail wagging the dog? I'm not 100% sure that it's one side or the other, right? I think it's got to be a push pull. We've got to educate the general public and the consumers so they understand the value and they seek it in the workplace, like the whole healthy home mindset, right? Right, John? Is that marketplace there yet? Are the consumers seeking it? Maybe after this COVID pandemic, more so, but it's still not really a mature, are people really making money in the healthy home market right now?
No.
Right. So how do we evolve that? We have to evolve both sides. You have to, and it's like chicken or egg, right? Which one do we develop the market, or do we, or do we develop the providers to the market? Or we do both?
Yeah, well, I'll jump. So, but it's an evolution, and part of the evolution is people are attached to their energy bill, and now how do we convert the language? So, I've tried to come up with a new way of talking about it. Like the blower door is not an infiltration device. It's a contaminant pathway measurement device. It's measuring a variety of things that move in and out of the house. So let's stop with air leakage and talk about all the things that come in with air. That's just one concept. The sooner we transition to energy and health are connected, that's when we start understanding A always equals B and B equals A as an overlap. So at Hayward Score, we have 70,000 people. And I can tell you, if you tell us you have poor maintenance, you're like, I have deferred maintenance in my house. I can tell you that you probably have 2 to 3 more symptoms than somebody who has a well-maintained home. You probably have more odors. You probably have signs of water leakage. You could potentially have mold. These are like huge statistics that show up when you say, I have a poorly maintained home. These things just jump off the charts with us. So you could drive down the neighborhood and be like, oh yeah, water damage, odors, a variety of stuff happening that we now understand. We're statistically beginning to understand the relationship between, bad workmanship, bad maintenance, and the impact on the occupant. So it's begun. We are now only going to make a better relationship between those two things.
We're actually seeing some, just like you were saying, Joe, we're actually seeing our contractors are now talking about, instead of like the scuttle or the attic hatch, that's now not just a place where we're losing heat, but that's where we're capturing contaminants from the attic coming into the house. Mm-hmm. That's way more effective to talk about that if you want to sell it than losing heat. So
yes, right.
Changing the way they're talking about things already. So hopefully we get the industry in place.
Yeah, I think there has to be a marketing, I'm not going to even say marketing shift, but a marketing evolution, right? And how we really have to evolve how the terminology. Peter Trost has done a lot of presentations on that. Peter and I did that at the HPC last year, where we actually did a combined session talking about the messaging. That's been one of my soapboxes. I usually do technical presentations at conferences, but I started talking about in the IAQ industry, the messaging, what resonates with the consumers, who are you trying to provide services to, and what are their trigger points? You can use the term IAQ doesn't mean jack shit to most consumers. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. We all think it does because we know the term. These acronyms, we throw these things around, in all these industries, and the consumers don't know most of what we're talking about. So we need to, the term a healthy home, that kind of clearly defines itself, right? And I think we have to think in terms of it. If we're going to try to pull the consumers along and educate them, we're going to have to also speak their language.
So the last question I threw out to you guys in the background was, do you have a resource you'd want to share, or something that's impacted you, or even a person or somebody, like, if you want to learn more, here's where I learned from. If you have something, throw it out as a resource, and in the chat order, just say what you got. So Doug, you're shaking your head one way or the other. What's something that you would say, what, here's one place you could go and find some great information?
Well, I would say one of the things that Bill and I would probably agree on is the Journal of Light Construction and Fine Home Building. Both terrific resources for residential construction. And there are a few others out there as well.
So I agree. I've got one, so I'll do it. So the Healthy Indoors website has got phenomenal resources. The stuff that Bob has put together, from the magazine to some of these shows. If you want to research something, add Healthy Indoors and then your topic, and you're going to find it from mold, asbestos, anything that's happening. Bob does a great job of touching on those concepts and gives you a resource you can now look for. So I stole everybody's thunder by jumping ahead of that. So, Bill, do you have something that you also think of as a good resource for folks?
Well, I got to say www.traintobuild.com, right, Joe?
Sure, right.
Yeah, but I think that, that a caveat on all this too is that there's so much information on the internet that you got to be very careful about where you get it. But the internet is an excellent resource. I just watched a session this morning from Construction Instruction with La Liberté Cook and Justin Wilson. And that's a pretty good thing that's going on. And they're starting to do some online stuff too. I'm not trying to take any thunder away from anybody else, but they're really technical and not necessarily so much healthy home. And I think healthy home is really where we need to go. That's where I want to go.
Yeah, but for a builder, their site, say it again, because it's a really great resource on how to install some of the materials that are new to the market.
It's Construction Instruction, or they abbreviate it to CI. And it's a lot of sponsored stuff. So it does come from a lot of manufacturers, but it's still good information.
Kelly, you got anything for us?
Yes, I just sent it in a link to you guys. Since we talked so much about client education and helping people kind of connect the air leakage with pollutants and stuff, if you haven't already seen it, the Grandma's House video that we put together based on some of Alaska's weatherization training materials in 09, I want to say. It's just great. It's, less than 7 minutes long. It walks through how all the different pieces of the house interact and how that can affect energy and moisture and comfort and all of that.
Are you going to promote SWS, or can you explain what SWS is? And it's a resource for anybody who's doing something in a house.
Yeah, so the standard work specifications, or SWS, are at sws.nrel.org.gov. They were developed also from 2009 to 2012, and they're essentially a form of a building code for home performance upgrades. And it's meant to be not just for weatherization, but all the home performance industry. So if you are going to do this certain thing in a house, like treat an attic hatch, here are the desired outcomes, and here are the standards you would be inspected to.
There's also some Weatherization X, which comes out of Montana. That's a great resource. Chris Dorsey's taking that on. Louise, the LSU Ag Center is another one that Bill represents. I'll throw out buildingscience.com. That's Joseph Stiebrig's site. Has great resources, as they're well backed by valid science and data. So if you're going to get something, make sure you know what the source is. And we always, Kevin, I stress, you're the source of the source. So make sure you explain where you got your information from.
It seems like a great. Final thoughts. Bill's got a burning
you
issue.
You can see that, huh?
Well, it was obvious. You were moving forward toward the camera. It's like
body language. Well, one of the things talking about earlier on about things that, what we'd like, a problem and a solution, because I'm down here in the hot, humid, what I end up seeing, most of the information we get comes from a heating climate. And so for the perfect example is 6 mil visqueen, or a vapor control layer on the inside of a house. And I still see houses down here that they're putting that in. And so I think that we must do a better job of climate specific education, whether it be with weatherization or just high performance building stuff.
That's a huge point, by the way. As an IAQ consultant over the years, traveling around the country, I see so many failed projects with designs. Southwest design in the Northeast, not going to work. Southwest design in the Southeast, not going to work.
So I'll ask all of our participants to send me one slide with your information and some other resources or something. We'll throw that on their webpage so people can figure out a way to contact you. That's one question we get a lot. How do I contact these folks? And give us some of your resources that you have mentioned here, or others that you didn't have time to think about.
Yeah, we'll definitely put links to, whatever you would like up there. We'll put your email addresses or whatever contact info you want along with the show notes, so you can have that there. So I guess we've taken it to the 2:30 mark, which is way over what you all committed to. And again, to any viewers that stayed with us this whole time live, sorry we started a little bit late, but the internet is not necessarily cooperating with us online streamers right now. It's clearly,
great content today. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, this is phenomenal. easily could take this for 2 more hours, and not run out of topics. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So with that, thanks so very much to Doug Horgan, Bill Robinson, Kelly Cutchin, Jay West, John Mitchell, and of course, the ever-present Joe Medosch. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Quick promo for next week's show. The Healthy Indoors Show will be live streamed next Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. We have the House Whisperer, Nate Adams, is joining us. He's a regular columnist for Healthy Indoors magazine, and he's been working on this feature called Badass HVAC. So we're actually going to be talking with Mr. Badass HVAC himself next week. That should be fun. And with that, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Bob Krell, host for Healthy Indoors Show and publisher of Healthy Indoors Magazine, and we will see you soon.
Thanks all, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.